Well, it's that time of year again, and we're headed into elections here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We all know that the way Virginia goes, so does the country. But what does that mean now in the era of Trump 2.0? And also with Virginia transitioning all 100 houses of the state delegates running for re-election and a new executive office, what will be the prevailing message that Virginians want to send to the rest of the country? It's Stay in the Water. I'm your host, Eric Claville, and you're joining us for our annual election preview show. This year, we're looking at election 2025, and we're going to take a deep dive into looking at both sides of the aisle, who's running, and really what's at stake. And today we have with us a phenomenal consultant and political activist and engager that I'll introduce in just a moment. But before I do so, I would like to thank all of you for joining us, as you always do, on this beautiful Sunday, as we broadcast from the campus of the Norfolk State University, home of the Spartan Nation, from none other than WNSB, Hot 91, the soul of VA. Well, I don't know about you, but this Sunday is absolutely gorgeous, and I'm enjoying it because the pollen is disappearing more and more. So it looks like it's going to be a great summer. And of course, our students, not just here in Norfolk State, but across the country and the Commonwealth, are getting ready and geared up for commencement services and graduating another class to go out and do great things. So study hard, make sure you make the passing grade, and get ready to lead your life in a world that we need true leaders to lead us. As I said before, this is our election preview show, and we're diving into this election preview, looking at the Commonwealth of Virginia and this important and pivotal election here in 2025. Every year after the presidential election, we have a gubernatorial election and a statewide election where we elect a new executive office, meaning that we elect a new governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general statewide, and also every single seat of the House of Delegates, all 100 seats, are up for re-election. So we have many candidates and many representatives who are running uncontested, others who are in what we call safe districts, but we also have those that we consider districts that are very competitive. And we have several of those throughout the state and one here in Hampton Roads. But I'm going to bring in someone that is no stranger to this show and also no stranger to NSU alum, David Washington, political consultant and community outreach. David, how are you this Sunday morning?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. Congratulations to all those graduates of Norfolk State this year. I know they've worked really hard to graduate from NSU. And an early welcome to the alumni.
Absolutely. Listen, you know a little something about walking across that stage here, right?
A little bit.
That's right.
It's been a while, but a little bit.
Well, I tell you what, it never gets old seeing young leaders come across, and also seasoned leaders, because we have a lot of people who are non-traditional students across the country at institutions coming across the stage, getting ready to lead their new lives and also lead our world. So again, what a great time that we're going to have this upcoming weekend, where Shirley Raff is the commencement speaker here at NSU. And we have phenomenal commencement speakers across the board at our HBCUs and universities across the country. So again, congratulations. David, this is our 2025 election preview show, and you were here with us a year ago to help us preview the 2024 election preview. And in 2024, we were talking about the federal election, and we were kind of looking at both sides and so forth. And I just want to get your take. Or were you surprised to see the outcome of the federal election?
We talked about that, and I was not surprised. I was disappointed, but I was not surprised, mainly because one of the takeaways from our previous conversation a year ago was I wasn't sure what the toss-up states were going to do in terms of Michigan, North Carolina, Arizona, Pennsylvania. I was confident in Virginia because I worked in Virginia, and we got some great folks that were on the ground doing what we need to be done in Virginia. But I was hearing grumblings in Michigan. I was hearing grumblings out of Pennsylvania. So that gave me pause to just say that former Vice President Kamala Harris had it in the bag, and we had to do the work. The work had to be done in order to win those toss-up states, because a lot of folks were just assuming that because of Donald Trump's past transgressions and his legal troubles that we had it in the bag. And I said back then, I didn't think that was the case based on the conversations that I've been having with folks that have been working the ground at some of these toss-up states.
It's interesting because we did have that conversation, and that was some of the trepidation, across the board. Was there enough outreach to those quote unquote safe, what they were calling blue wall states in order to get the vote out in order to secure the election? But, hindsight is always 20/20, and we know that there was not. So moving forward, let's take a look at Virginia. And usually what happens in the past trends, Virginia has kind of, even though it's a reliably blue state for the most part, it has, in the past, revolted against whoever was elected in the White House. So case in point, during Trump's first election in 2016, the Commonwealth of Virginia elected Governor Ralph Northam, who was a Democrat. And then after President Trump, we had President Joe Biden, and then the Commonwealth of Virginia elected Governor Youngkin, who's our current governor, as a Republican. So now there's another Republican back in office, and this is President Donald Trump 2.0. Do you think that the trend will hold? And do you think that there will be a galvanizing around who we still have as a popular governor? And we'll get into some of the issues in just a moment when we go into what's happening on both sides of the camp. But do you think that there's the popularity of the current governor, or do you think that trend will continue to happen?
I believe that the work has to be done on the Democratic side, because the governor, you have a governor who people have perceived as have done some good things from their perspective. He hasn't been the carbon copy of Donald Trump in terms of being divisive and saying things that are controversial. Now, if you talk to my good friend, Senator Louise Lucas, what she'll tell you is that he's a wolf in sheep's clothing, and he may not say some things that Donald Trump says or as controversial as Donald Trump, but his policies are just as controversial. You have to look at the policies and what he's trying to push through Richmond to truly see his true colors, based on conversations that I've had with not just Senator Lucas, but with Speaker Don Scott. So which side gets to push that narrative coming into November in terms of Youngkin's record versus what the Democrats are going to say? Well, no, don't just look at the perception, look at what he was trying to push while he was governor. That tells you the real story of who he is and what he's about. Whoever tells that story better will help out their side. So that's going to be the challenge.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about policies, and we've talked on this show and my other show, The Clavier Report, which airs after this at 12:30, that the policies that the first 100 days of our current governor really looks like the first 100 days of the Trump administration, with a lot of policies, especially as it relates to critical race theory. During the time of 2017, during the time of the governor's first year in office, which was 2021-22. So we take a look now at what's taking place at the White House with DEI. So with the president's agenda. So it's pretty much the same policy, but executed in a different way. So, David, when we start to delve into the campaign itself, let's take a look at both sides. So we're going to now take a look at the statewide offices, and then we'll take a look at the districts for the state delegates and kind of look at the House mix as well. So let's look at the race for governor. So right now we have what's called a primary election coming up in June. June 17th is the primary election. Primary simply is where you may have a contested candidate on the Republican and the Democratic side, and they have to run in order to become the nominee. Now, of course, in the gubernatorial race, that is not the case. Currently, we have on the Democratic side, Abigail Spanberger, former U.S. Congresswoman out of Northern Virginia, who is the Democratic candidate for governor here in the Commonwealth. On the Republican side, we have currently our Lieutenant Governor, Winsome Earl-Sears, who's also a former state delegate, who is chosen to be the candidate for the Republican nomination for governor. It doesn't matter who wins in this race. Well, it does matter, but whoever wins, we will have a historic governor in the governor's mansion. We will have the first female governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. David, what is your take on those two candidates and the fact that the Commonwealth of Virginia in over 400 years will elect its first female governor?
Well, I'm personally partial to Abigail Spanberger, and I'll just fully disclose that I would like to see her be our next governor of Virginia. But I will say the Republican Party of Virginia believes they have this through Youngkin in that successful campaign. They believe that they have a pathway of victory to get Winston-Salem to the governor's mansion, and with that is building their coalitions in the western part of the state. Those communities west of Roanoke, motivating, galvanizing those communities and getting and maximizing their turnout numbers, winning what they can out of Northern Virginia, doing well in Hampton Roads when it comes to the Virginia Beach, Chesapeake corridor, and doing well in communities like Isle of Wight and on the Eastern Shore, on the northern section of the Eastern Shore, and doing well, and not just, and they need presidential level numbers of turnout like they did for 4 years ago. They get the level of, because as we all know, we all prepare for it, and unfortunately we have to prepare for that there may be a drop off from presidential level turnout to gubernatorial level turnout.
Well, David, real quick,
yeah.
do you think this year we're going to have a drop off? And later on, I want to talk about the surrounding issues, because I think what's happening on the federal level, I think people are going to be energized to get out and vote.
That's what we're hoping for. That's for my side, and for those who I work with, we're hoping that if on the Democratic side, I was going to speak to that, if the Democrats if we get presidential level turnout, it doesn't matter what the Republicans do. One of the things that hurt us is that we did not get presidential level turnout or the type of level of participation that we needed to have in certain districts in Virginia on the Democratic side, where it allowed the Republicans to win. But because of what Donald Trump is doing in Washington, D.C., because we have so many federal workers being impacted, and a lot of people, all of us know, I know folks that work in federal agencies that have been furloughed and out here trying to find work because of that. And the energy and the enthusiasm that's coming from these town halls, folks making up their own town halls. They never were the member of Congress shows up, they're going to have a town hall. So that energy and that push and that drive, we're hoping that we have the level of turnout. But we got to do the work. The work has to be done. We can't assume folks on the ground are going to have to do the work to reach out to those folks and to make sure that we are energizing and getting folks enthusiastic and motivating folks to go out to the polls and vote and make sure that their voice is heard and to be a rebuke to the Trump administration, what they have going on in Washington, D.C. So over the next 6 months, that's what has to be done. We can't assume they're going to show up. We have to do the work to make sure that they do show up, and with the understanding that we know that the Republicans are going to do the same thing on their end, because, like I said before, because of Youngkin, their folks that crunch their numbers, they believe that they have a pathway of victory. So we can't just assume that the Democrats have been running the table when it comes to federal elections over the past several years in Virginia that we got it in the bag. We made that mistake 4 years ago, and we got swept at the state level.
Yeah. And when you talk about doing the work, I mean, that's been a conversation from two historic losses. One from the Hillary Clinton campaign on the federal level in 2016, and then also in just this past election cycle in 2024. But it seems like this mistake keeps happening just about every other election cycle. Do you think that the larger committee that you're a part of have learned that lesson to say, and like you mentioned, also in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we thought, the Democrats thought that the Democratic candidate was a shoo-in. But do you think that the party has learned this lesson to get out there, actually do the work, and don't take for granted that voters will come out and vote just because?
I do. I sincerely do, because we've had these hard conversations, and to the credit to the party leadership, we've had internal town halls and internal meetings, and the hard questions were asked. Every election cycle is because of Virginia, we have elections every single year. It's always an opportunity to reevaluate, reassess, and come up with a solution. And I can happily say that our Susan Swecker, who was the previous chair, who's the outgoing chair now, Senator Bagby is the new chair. He was recently elected the new party chair statewide. There has been open conversations about what we could do better. So I would say yes, because the folks at the top of the Democratic Party of Virginia have been listening, and that's what I'm encouraged about, that they're willing to listen and to take criticism and to see what we can do better. And I will also say that Abigail Spanberg, very, very early, I want to say February, March of this year, started meeting with party leadership, as well as with myself, having little town halls, and us telling her what we didn't like happening in 4 years ago, and how is her team going to do things differently. And that's the credit to her team, that they are not just sitting around waiting for after Labor Day to get their campaigns going. They've been campaigning since beginning of the year.
Absolutely. It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Eric Claville, and you're joining us for our annual election preview show. Here, we're looking at the statewide election in 2025 in the Commonwealth of Virginia. As Virginia goes, so does the rest of the country. Who's on the ballot? What are the issues surrounding this election? And will the turnout be historic given the impact of what's happening on the federal level? Joining us to discuss this is my good friend and political consultant, NSU alum, and community outreach director, none other than David Washington. David, we looked at the gubernatorial candidates. Now let's take a look at the other two offices, because there's been a little controversy on one side. Some may call it self-inflicted. But I want to take a look first at the AG's office, then we'll get to Lieutenant Governor. On the AG side, we have Jason Miyares, who is currently the Attorney General for the Commonwealth of Virginia. On the Republican side, he is going to run for re-election. He has positive ratings across the board, across the state, as far as several things that he's looking at, and has been a very, very major topic of his time as AG, primarily for human trafficking and also anti-Semitism and several other initiatives as well. I will say that he also initiated an externship program in order to get more diverse candidates in the AG's office, and called the Oliver Hill legal externship program, which is a great program, and a lot of our students have participated in that program, which is open to all students across the Commonwealth of Virginia. On the Democratic side, we have two who are vying for the Democratic nomination, and that is former Norfolk delegate Jay Jones, and also current Commonwealth's attorney out of Henrico County, Shannon Taylor. This is Jay Jones' second time running for Attorney General nomination, when he lost in the primary against then incumbent Mark Herring in 2021. According to Inside Nova, Jones is currently raised about $1.8 million, has over $1.4 million in cash, giving him a comfortable advantage over Taylor, who has $1 million in funds raised and about $666,000 in cash on hand. David, what's your take on that particular primary?
Well, full disclosure, once again, Jay Jones is a friend. I have met with attorney Sharon Taylor. I'm very impressed with her as a person. But I will say that in terms of that primary, it's going to be about who wins Northern Virginia, who does well in Hampton Roads. Now, Jay is going to have an advantage because for us, Jay Jones is the local kid that's done good, and a lot of folks around here are excited about his campaign. So Attorney Taylor is going to have her work. She's definitely going to have her work in order to overtake Jay in terms of the level of kind of support that he has. But I think it's going to be extremely tight. I believe whoever makes the best case over the next 30 days is the one that's going to be victorious in that primary. Because the position that I'm in, I can't take any sides, but I will say that as David Washington, the person, Jay Jones is a personal friend of mine, and I do wish him well.
Yeah. And here what we're doing, and of course, to your point, we're looking at the candidates and looking at who's out there. And your expertise of being a political consultant and being from this area really gives us great insight, on what's happening on the ground. You mentioned Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia is going to be key in this election. Now, a lot of people kind of sneeze at Hampton Roads, but Hampton Roads is the center of political power of the Commonwealth, given that all of our executive offices, candidates, who are holding office now, governor, lieutenant governor, and an AG, all reside or have their started in Virginia Beach. They're from Virginia Beach area. And then, of course, the leaders of the two houses, the Senate and also the House of Delegates, all live from Portsmouth. So Hampton Roads is the center of political power. But Northern Virginia is right now going to become very important in this election, especially given the federal issues. And I want to get to a couple of more here, the lieutenant governor race, and we're going to talk about these federal issues in just a moment. Now, on the Democratic side, we have 6 individuals who are vying for the Democratic nomination, but only 3 are considered viable. That's former mayor, Richmond Mayor LeVar Stoney, who's also the former Secretary of Administration, and also from Yorktown here in Hampton Roads. We also have State Senator Aaron Rouse, who currently represents Virginia Beach in the 22nd District. And then also we have State Senator Hashmi, who represents the 15th District with the parts of Chesterfield County and Richmond City. Again, no one from Northern Virginia. What do you think about this particular race?
I think once again that is going to boil down to who is reaching out and the grassroots folks, the folks that are going to vote in a Democratic primary. We know that African American women play a huge part of the turnout when it comes to Democratic primaries. So which campaigns are reaching out to that group? Who's really pushing their campaign hard to make inroads in Northern Virginia? Who's pushing their campaign to reach out to Hampton Roads? None of them can concede Hampton Roads to Senator Aaron Rouse. That would be a mistake. They have to go into communities like Chesapeake, like Norfolk, like Portsmouth, like Suffolk, and make their argument as to why they should be voted on. And then also, don't forget about the western part of the state. My friends in Southwest, in the western part of Virginia, in Roanoke, and in those outlying communities, those Democrats, those hard-working Democrats, will say, "Do not forget about us." And when we have so many people running, the Southwest and Southern Virginia is going to play a big role in this primary. Who's going to come out? Who's going to participate in the Democratic primary? And who's going to vote for which person for lieutenant governor? Those is going to be extremely vital. And so the south side of Virginia and Southwest Virginia, they may not play as big a role on the Democratic side when it comes to November elections, but because of this primary and because we have so many people running for lieutenant governor, 6 in total, they can have a huge impact on this primary.
Absolutely. Now let's look at the Republican side. We talked about a little controversy and maybe self-inflicted. Well, actually self-inflicted. But we do have the top candidate who is running for lieutenant governor nomination. And however, John Reed, and he is the top candidate. However, there was a little controversy where the governor actually alleged to have called him and or spoke with him and asked him to drop out of the race over what they're calling some explicit images, to which Reed is saying that these things are fake. Someone put out a fake account on him, and he's claiming extortion as well against the PAC that is for the governor. So with that, Reed said he's not dropping out. There's a lot of support for Reed across the board for him with other Republican elected officials. Look like he's going to stay. Everybody's has lawyered up, so we'll see what happens there. But with that being said, will this impact the ticket? Because I'm going to call it's going to be a Sears Reed Miyares ticket, and he's currently the only openly gay male on the Republican side as well, so which he thinks may play a part in them wanting him to drop out. But whatever the case may be, he has tons of support across the board, and it looks like he's going to be the nominee. Your take on that ticket running?
That ticket is very interesting. It's really going to be a great test case. You have 3 individuals who are clearly conservative in their principles and in their policies and who they are and what they are, but you have Winston Sears, who just so happens to be a conservative black woman. You have Mr. Reed, who is a openly gay man, but he is a conservative. And then you have Jason Morales, Attorney General Jason Morales, who's from Hampton Roads and is a Hampton Roads kid. What are people's perceptions of him being from the area, but then also understanding that he has been as his time as Attorney General, he's done some things that I equate to really pushing the Trump agenda and trying to push it into Hampton Roads and into Virginia. So it's going to how is that coalition of candidates and who they are and what they are and how they look and how people's perceptions of them, what's going to be? I'm really interested to see what the turnout and what the level of enthusiasm on the Republican side is going to be in terms of what the turnout is going to be. Are folks just going to vote for them because they have an R next to their name? Are they going to look past the issues that they have with Sears? Because there are Republicans who have some serious concerns about Sears. They don't think that she's quote unquote MAGA enough. You have folks who have issues with the personal life, unfortunately, of their lieutenant governor candidate. So how do people look past that? So that's to me, that's going to be a challenge on their side.
Absolutely. But one thing we do know is that just this last Friday, early voting has started. Early voting has started for the Democratic primary on May 2nd, and you can vote all the way up to the election day. June 17th is the primary election day. So we've run out of time, David. Every time we talk, there's a lot of great information you bring, but we're going to have you back. And again, thanks again for coming back 1 year later after previewing the 2024 election cycle to help us kick off the preview for 2025. For those of you that are listening, thank you again for joining us as you always do on this Sunday as we bring movers, shakers, and policymakers to you to discuss issues important to the community. Until next time, be good, be great, God bless, and we'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Carrie Washington, and you're listening to State of the Water with award-winning host Dr. Eric Claville.